Anyways, let's go ahead and get to talking about something really, really fun. I know that we are used to hearing doom, gloom, and everything else, but right now, I just kind of want to make fun of some people. I think that's going to be a great time for all of us, but before I'm allowed to do that, I need to let you guys make fun of me, and usually that happens in the fan art section, and I don't even know where this came from. Riddle of Lightning just posted epic pants. And while I have been playing a lot of World of Warcraft on stream, I don't know what this is in reference to. So sometimes the jokes are so layered that they are just the layer of clothing on top of my hips. But I have no context for this one. Anyway, as always, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop the fan art into my Discord, where I will take a look at it and wonder why the hell I've cultivated a community that draws me with weird random chain pants right now that I just don't understand. Anyway, that all said, let's go ahead and see what we're doing today. Today, we are going to be checking out a lot of what Right Wing Watch has been putting together, which is, well, much of the right-wing nationalistic evangelical base that is supporting Trump and Elon Musk. They've got a lot of words of wisdom to give us. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the first of them, and this is Kelsey O'Malley and Tim Sheets. I believe we've talked about Tim Sheets before. I 100% recognize that face.
President Trump did not mind hearing prophetic words or hearing from the from the clergy, from fivefold ministries, even allowing them to pray over him, prophesy over him. He did not mind that at all. And there are others in his cabinet that are the same way. So thank God we have.
Okay, so Trump is okay listening to prophecy. I'm not 100% certain if I've ever heard him once ever talk about prophecy in his own words. I've definitely seen that he's got people who are in his cabinet who support him, who care about prophecy, but there's another word for prophecy. Just go ahead and say it. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no such thing as prophecy. You have an attempt at guessing what is going to happen in the future, or you make a, quote, guess that is so vague that it could apply to a billion things. Artemis, thank you for redeeming your points for an Alwal. When you make that guess that could apply to a billion things, you end up in a very, very interesting scenario where if you get it wrong, it was vague enough that it could apply to something in the future. And if you get it right, you talk about how your prediction was 100% true the entire time. I've made a bunch of predictions on my channel, not because of prophecy, but just because I watch political stuff all the time, and I need to have some kind of clue as to what direction things are going in, and I get shit wrong all the fucking time. But I guarantee you, when I get something right, I dance around that like a motherfucker. That said, anyway, yeah, I don't think Trump's really listening to prophecy, but let's continue.
Someone that's paying attention to what the church has to say, that the ecclesia has to say.
What is the church? This is one of those things that I really have never understood. The concept of the church. So when I was growing up in PCA, there was no the church. There was our church, which had one particular message that was given to, people in our denomination. We were told we were non-denominational, but we were definitely Southern Baptist. But whenever we said the church, it usually referred to us because everyone else was a false prophet. But it's really weird to say the church and only be referring to your own specific denomination of Christianity when there are plenty of other churches around. It's this weird bit of Christian arrogance that I don't think has ever had the opportunity to properly die in America, or, maybe anywhere else that happens to have as much of an infestation of evangelicalism as we have here. But let's go ahead and see what else we got.
We went through a period of time where the government wasn't listening. But
he's talking about Biden.
But no.
Despite the fact that Biden was a Catholic and made it very well known that he was a religious person. Or he might be talking about Obama, who also was a religious person. But unless that person's a Republican, they will always just say, oh, that wasn't the real church. That was a false prophet or some other bullshit.
They are.
Yeah.
And look what's happening.
Yep.
The reset promised is taking place right in front of our eyes. We're looking at miracles taking place every day.
You have a very low bar for a miracle. Is your idea of a miracle, like, Musk said a thing on the internet? Because, like, yeah, the internet's a bit of a miracle that it even exists at all, but that's not a really high bar to clear when it comes to what we would call a miracle. In my eyes, a miracle is something that is so profoundly rare so as to be impossible. It is something that cannot come around by any means other than mystical. And the problem we run into is we don't have any examples of something like that actually happening. You don't have somebody who's fallen into a grave and has been a rotting corpse for 2 years and then coming out of the grave afterwards. You don't have something like that. You only have situations that can be explained away in a billion ways where somebody has to latch onto it and say, oh yeah, that's a miracle. But I'm sure he's talking about politics stuff, and I don't think that there's anything that's actually happening right now in politics that can be considered miraculous in any way, shape, or form. What are we talking about right now? When we're talking about miracles, people like this will never be very specific about what these miracles are, but there's always going to be a group of people who are willing to be yes men and nod their heads to this and go, yes, 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 there are miracles happening right now. When in reality, it's more that people like this really want miracles to be happening right now, and because they want miracles to be happening right now,
Trump did not mind.
Thank you, computer, for autoplaying a thing. I've talked about how I feel about autoplay in the past. I will reiterate it again. The person who designed autoplay and the person who incentivized it with finances both deserve to be garroted. Anyway, miracles are not a thing that's happening. If you think a miracle has actually happened at some point in time, then please let me know in the comment section right now, along the same time that you subscribe and, I don't know, maybe support me over on Patreon. That'd be cool. Anyway, we hear through this from Tim Sheets that Trump is welcoming prophets into the White House. He is listening to prophecy in the White House. So what kind of prophets is he listening to in the White House? Well, he has a faith advisor named Paula White. And what kinds of things is
Here's what God is
she saying right now? Of course, when I try to click it, everything just blows up because that is what my computer needs to be doing. Paula White, faith advisor to Donald Trump. Just out of curiosity, what advice do you have for us? What prophetic words do you have?
Here's what God is saying in this prophetic season.
Okay.
If you hold your peace, if you do not participate, if you hold back now, if you miss this moment, there will be enlargement and deliverance for God's people and his purposes. But God can't use you. He doesn't use spectators. He uses participators, people who say, yes, I partner with you, God. And
this is really weird language. If you work with God, he will inflate the thing that you have contributed. God wants you to be a partner. This all sounds really business-like. That's real weird.
through you, I'm being raised up for such a time as this. I declare, do not miss your moment. You're in a position for such a time as this. Go forward boldly into your destiny in the courage and the spirit of Esther. So what are you going to do? You see, I have to be obedient to God, and you must sacrifice in some way during this prophetic season.
I said that it was going to sound a little business-like, but she's asking you to sacrifice a little bit, to partner with God, and God will definitely increase your rewards after such a time has passed. Ma'am, are you about to ask me for money?
Because it's through sacrifice that your spirit opens up.
Sow your best ministry gift today for deliverance and favor, just like Esther. call, write, go online. Wait, hold on. Is this all just asking for money? Is this all just asking for money? Hold on a second. PaulaWhite.org/Esther. You will be connected with favor, Esther. Your deliverance is here. Okay. Participate with me. Participate here with me. Motherfucker! It's actually just asking for money! It's actually just asking for money! If you sow $133, according to Proverbs 133, we will bless you with a special silver-plated Esther pendant necklace and 20-inch chain. You know, something they probably bought off Teemu. In fact, actually, hold on. Esther necklace, Teemu. I'm like 90% certain I can find this shit on Teemu. I'm like 95% certain I can find this on the website that only has tiny little trinkets from China. I'm like 99% certain I'm gonna find... Well, yep. They got a whole thing on Easter jewelry right now. 84 cents for a pearl bracelet. Let's see here. What else do we have in here? Get your cross. Was $52, is now $6.88. Get your Easter pendants for $2. They were $2.90, but now they're $2.61. Oh, but every time it's a cross, look at how they fucking game Christians. Look at how they game Christians. When it's a cross, specifically, notice how, like, all the Easter stuff, look at the rabbits, it was $1.69, now it's $1.19. But the minute that it's a cross, $52 for the cross there. Where was the crystal cross that we saw just a second ago? The cross, $46 gets cut down to $5. So if it's an Easter bunny, we sell it for $1.70 and we mark it down to $1.18. But if it's a cross, then we get to say, oh yeah, here's this $50 thing because it's Easter. In the spirit of Easter, we're going to cut that price down for you a little bit. Not if you go with Paula White, though. She goes with that original Teemu price. $133 to get yourself a $2 Teemu chain. Axo says those AI-ass birds. Yep, those are just AI birds. 110%. 110%. Jesus. Oy, oy, oy. It is amazing the level of actual blasphemy that is required right here. Go ahead, Paula. Ask for $133 from a group of people who have to spend $10 on a thing of 18 eggs. Because that's how much I spent on eggs recently. An 18-pack of eggs for $10. That means $7 to $8 for a 12-pack of eggs. I was promised cheaper eggs by Donald J. Trump. Which person was not involved in prophesizing cheaper eggs by Donald Trump? Who was it that didn't give him the prophecy on eggs? Anyway, does she say anything else in here that I care about?
So wide that you can receive divine direction. This is a deliverance seed that needs to be sown now, to be in position, to see increase, to activate God's promises.
This is just prosperity ministry. It is 110% a woman asking... Okay, look. I'm going to go ahead and tell you something. When I ask you all for money, you will not receive anything back. Your life will not improve. It is 110% for improving my life. It is me asking you for money so that I can go buy Taco Bell. That is what it's for. It is 100% me asking for money so that I can go buy McDonald's. Or I can buy a Magic the Gathering card that I've been looking at and not buying because $4 is too rich for my blood sometimes. That's my stance. If you give me money, I am going to use it to further my life, which may have a positive effect on your life if, for some weird parasocial reason, you are heavily invested in my success. Paula here wants you to believe that when you give her money, that's going to affect you positively. But I promise you, it's not. Your life isn't going to be changed in any meaningful way other than the fact that you do not have the $133. Also, yes, version hey, there is a canonical price behind that word, but I'm sorry, you're not paying it. Somebody says the positive effect is that another person gets to eat for another day. Right. So in the Ripper, thank you for naming your points for an in the world where we are all living in from each according to their ability to each according to their needs, then yes, there's a tangible benefit there for you, and that is because we are looking at you not as an individual, but you as a part of society that has a stated goal of improving the rest of society around you. But not here. That is not what's happening here. This woman who claims to have an almighty God watching over her, that God is doing everything but supplying her with the necessary money to survive, apparently. Though, instead of asking you and me for $133, maybe she could sell that $10,000 piano back there that's not doing anything when the actual music being played is very likely being digitally played, and that man's just fucking miming with his hands.
And if you're able, I challenge you to sow $133 because we sow.
You don't need to sow $133. Tell you what, if you spend $133 on this stream right now, you will get those words that I don't want to say. No, instead of that, you can do that. You can also go over to like ddlgplayground.com and use coupon code Suris. You get 20% off there. I don't know, Paula White, you can get something there to go fuck yourself. Just saying. Just saying. And for those of you who want to comment about how the price for that word has increased over what it used to be by 33%, to that I say, yes, you're 100%. Inflation's a bitch. It's bad. Anyway, yeah, these are the same people that are going to try to make sure that you give them money while they're trying to tell this to people who don't like it when the government takes money from them. And yet, here we are. These are the people that are the prophets that Trump is supposed to be listening to. These e-beggars online. And again, I'm not saying that being an e-beggar online is the worst thing in the world. It is quite literally my full-time job. But I do have to say that if your job is to say that you are some important schmuck on the internet or in the eyes of God, then stop trying to be more important than you are. You, like me, are an e-beggar on the internet. I dance around and try to entertain people so that you will put a little bit of money in my tip jar. And that is how I survive. And if Paula White can admit that that's how she survives, instead of pretending to be some great important person that the president of the United States needs to be fucking listening to, I don't know, maybe we'd have a better place to live in right now than this shithole of a country. Anyway, we have more to get into. Apparently, Lance Wallnau, who is a Christian nationalist, is saying that Trump has a job in the White House right now. And let's go ahead and listen to him and see what he says about that job.
Jesus told me that Trump was going to be put...
Hold on. I need you to say that one more time.
Jesus told me that Trump was going...
So, two things. We are only a few seconds into the video, and I already have to ask a couple questions. One, how the fuck did you know Jesus was telling you to anything at all? Two, what the fuck was that vibration? Was this man having a stroke? No, seriously, watch him as he speaks.
Jesus told me that...
Jesus told me, like, no, I will emulate what I saw. what I saw. Jesus told me. I don't understand what he's doing there. Anyway.
Jesus told me that Trump was going to be put back in office for the sake of the nations. And I thought, that's unusual. I thought he was coming back just for making America great. The Lord said, oh, no, his agenda is America. But for America's interest to be secured, there has to be a reordering of the global community.
Wow.
China has to be mitigated as a threat. The Panama Canal has to be opened up. Gaza has to be re-seized so that the Middle East doesn't become a tinderbox. Europe has to settle its issue with Russia. So Trump will create a Pax Romana.
So, hold on. Let me get this straight. Europe is going to settle its issues with Russia by the United States removing all of its aid to Europe somehow. It sounds more like Russia needs to settle its issues with Europe and stop trying to be a tyrannical dictator. In fact, actually, maybe if NATO just collapsed on fucking Russia at this point. Anyway, I digress. Secondly, the Panama Canal. I do not know enough about the Panama Canal to offer an opinion there, and I'm willing to be honest about that. I don't know enough about that situation to have any vested interest in trying to lead y'all to any particular conclusion where that's concerned. But when it comes to Gaza, I do have a vested interest. Because what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. And what he is telling us right now is that Trump's job is to genocide Gaza. Because a re-seizing of Gaza requires completely removing or eliminating every single person who lives in there, which is, of course, stage 9 of genocide, a much more heavy-handed version of what Trump is trying to do to trans people here.
Period of peace, realigning nations. Now, when that happens, his strange God-given devotion to Christians being persecuted, it's not happening in America, although he went after it, because if you lost a job or aren't getting hired because of DEI, I guess it bothers him. He thinks it's for America, but you know what it really is for? I'll predict it. It's going to come against the persecution of Christians globally.
Wow.
He is...
So he thinks that Trump... Let me listen to that again, because it sounded like he said Trump getting rid of DEI stops Christians from being persecuted abroad? What?
Predict it. It's going to come against the persecution of Christians globally.
Wow.
He is raised up as God's instrument for the
Try that once more. Wait, Dorito, are you right? Did he?
aligning nations. Now, when that happens, his strange...
Okay, so I've scratched my nose like that before, and it wasn't trying to fish up there for gold. But that did look very much like my guy here digging. Oh, wait, no, hold on. That nostril definitely moved. And he definitely flicked it to the side. Yep. Nope. That's gone. That's gone. That's some unpaid intern is going to have to clean up that off the floor.
His strange God-given devotion to Christians being persecuted, it's not happening in America, although he went after it, because if you lost a job or aren't getting hired because of DEI, I guess it bothers him. He thinks it's for America, but you know what it really is for? I'll predict it. It's going to come against the persecution of Christians globally.
Okay, so he was speaking about those as two unrelated things, but they had no reason being in the same sentence. According to this guy, DEI stopped Christians from getting hired? That stops... DEI stops Christians from getting hired? How? My guy, did you know that when we hired veterans and black people from DEI, many of them were also Christian? It had nothing the fuck to do with Christians getting or not getting jobs. But you know what this is for, right? The economy is fucked. And there is definitely somebody right now who is an old hick. And this person is thinking, it's somebody's fault. And I don't have enough money to put food on the table. And then that person is waiting for somebody to tell him who the person at fault is. Now, instead of thinking about the billionaires, you know, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, instead of thinking of them and going, they got too much money, Nobody gets that much money without being dishonest. And I'm here for an honest day's wage. What the fuck's that person doing over there with that much fucking money? Instead of that, instead of thinking like a normal person, that person is going, that black person's a DEI hire. Bet he's get paying more than me. Bet he's get paid more than me too. And instead of talking with that person about how much money they make and how they could work together to get more money from the person who actually controls whether or not they get a fair day's wage, you know, the billionaire, the CEO, instead, he's going to turn all of his anger and ire because Tucker Carlson or some other dipshit told him to. He's going to turn all of his other ire at the minority. I hired that lesbian over there because she's a... And then he'll say some disparaging slur about her. And then she probably gets paid 20% more than me. I bet you what. And then he'll never follow up that thought with anything. But he'll definitely think it. Now that person, right now, I'm making up that person disparagingly. But I've also heard that sentiment where I live as an off-the-cuff thing by people who have lost multiple jobs, not all the time because of their own fault. Oftentimes it's circumstance. We're all workers here. We're all part of the proletariat. I promise you, we're all getting screwed, and not a single CEO has used lube in the process. We are all getting fucked together. And instead of doing what we should be doing, looking at the people who have control over all of the funds in a fucking hegemonic way, instead of looking at those people and wondering how can we extract more wealth out of them, we instead look to each other and wonder why somebody else took our scraps, instead of ever once questioning why the fuck we were given scraps in the first place. We all got to sit down at a barbecue together. And instead of getting mad at the person who ate 80% of the barbecue out on the fucking table, we got mad when there was 10% left and somebody else took a plate. A singular plate. A sane person doesn't look at DEI, the person taking the singular plate away from you. A sane person looks at the guy who ate 90% of the buffet and goes, what the fuck are you doing? Put it back. And instead, we live in a world where everybody sits there clamoring over that last 10% and then saying DEI is the reason that I didn't get my share of the 10%, instead of wondering where the fuck the other 90% went. But don't worry, we're not done. We're not done. Do you remember Sean Foyt? Do you remember when he was doing his super spreader event? Do you remember that? Well, he's decided now that he's going to go on another tour, a Wildfire devastation tour, in order to provide divine perspective to people who have been affected by the recent wildfires.
I go up to Los Angeles to meet together with HUD Secretary Scott Turner and his entire team that are flying in from D.C. to view the catastrophe of these wildfires across Los Angeles and to meet with faith leaders so that we can pray to get God's strategy on how to rebuild this great city and this great region. And I can't overemphasize how amazing this opportunity is. I'm bringing my guitar. We're going to worship. We're going to pray. We're going to go through all of the devastated areas and ask God how we can rebuild this. And I can't wait for, this amazing cabinet that President Trump has put into place. And they want to support local ministries and local pastors. And they want our advice and perspective on how the government can help rebuild, which I just think is amazing.
How? What possible perspective can you give as person who reads one book and ignores other books? What possible perspective could you give on how best to handle this shit? This is the fucking death of expertise. Now, on the one hand, there is a little bit of benefit to ministry leaders having these kinds of conversations, because typically ministry leaders are going to be very, very connected with their congregations, and they'll hear things that the people in their congregations need, often because whenever they get prayer requests, that gives them a chance to actually look and see what their constituents, I'm sorry, their congregations, I don't want to call them the people who employ them, but they kind of are. They'll be looking at those prayer requests, so they have a pretty decent idea of the things that the people who are in their groups need. But these are the same things that you'll be able to hear from local business owners who own, say, card shops or local bars. Anybody who is considered a community leader who has a role in fostering a community would have this kind of perspective. So the fact that they are specifically looking for Christian ministers for this perspective is a bit confusing. That said, it feels really weird to be like, hey, California, or a bunch of wildfires happened everywhere over on the west coast of the United States. I'm going to play music about it, about worshiping the Lord who, ostensibly is all-powerful and 100% allowed those wildfires to spread. I don't know. Feels like a very, very weird priority to have, personally. That's just me, though. But don't worry, we are not done. I got one more person to talk about here, and this one is Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbon. Now, with the new Trump administration in, we do have an opportunity for a shaking up of the political sphere. Now, how exactly does Joel Webbon want the political sphere and, to extension, the social sphere to be shaped up in recent years?
In a nutshell, in general, I don't want to see women in the public sphere. You mean they shouldn't hold political office? Correct. You mean you don't want to see them podcasting? Correct. Well, but what about in the marketplace, with, 9 to 5, careers? No, not that either. Like, I don't want to see women holding positions in the public square. I don't.
Ah, yes. Teemu Matt Walsh. It's Teemu Matt Walsh. So this motherfucker wants women to be slaves. And he may say, oh no, that's not what I want, but that's 100% what he wants. So in a world where a woman is not allowed to make any money, because that is what that means. If a woman is not allowed to be in the public sphere, then they only have two options: be with their husband, which we'll get into why that's an issue, or stay with their family, but they never actually go out in public. This is a person who would be much more comfortable, not in America, which apparently loves freedom, but would be much more comfortable, say, in a country that has women in trash bags. Just saying. He'd be much more comfortable there. But the reason why this is an issue, not only do we get into the somewhat hyperbolic women are slaves thing, but this is a person who very, very likely is an abuser in some way, shape, or form to whatever partner he has. The reason I'm willing to say that is anybody who has ever had the thought in their mind, how can I entrap a woman and prevent her from leaving me, very likely has a skeleton in their closet that needs to be addressed. They very, very likely do. Because they very likely have done something in their relationship that has caused the threat of their partner leaving them to happen, and instead of thinking about how they can possibly grow as an individual, as a person, as a human, as a partner, as a husband, they've decided instead that what they need to do is figure out how to entrap a person so that they cannot leave. Kitsune Cavalier says, I disagree, Matt Walsh is Teemu Joel Webbon. They are both knockoffs of each other, and they both look like criminal masterminds who get thwarted by Inspector Gadget every fucking weekend. This is the reason why when people talked about The Handmaid's Tale in response to Jordan Peterson, this is the end of the political spectrum that they are worried about. This guy right here. And if you find yourself agreeing with this sentiment, I promise you, you are some form of abuser too. Because the world you are fantasizing about is a world that does nothing but enable those abuses. It is a form of soft slavery for half of the population. And that is it. And the only reason I say that The only reason I say that is years and years and years ago, when I was in a much darker place in my life, well before I was a content creator, these were the thoughts I had in my head. Now, granted, I was Christian back then too, but I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that I was not a good person in need of therapy, who needed to work on himself more than he needed to find another relationship. Because if a relationship failed, for me, the one thing on my mind was, how can I perpetuate it? How can I figure out how to make this relationship continue, even if the other person doesn't want it to? Those were thoughts that floated around in my head during that dark and much younger part of my life. So I'm not saying that hyperbolically, like, oh boy, this sounds like a villain, guys. Like, no, I say that because this sounds like shit I thought. This sounds like shit I thought over a decade ago. Not the exact words, but definitely very close to the sentiment. And none of that is okay. It was not okay for me to do that then, and it's not okay for him now. I'm super happy he gets to have an opinion, but that opinion is horse shit. So maybe it's time for him not to have an opinion. Anyway, that's all I got here. Most of this is just me wanting to make fun of people who sound really stupid on the internet. But if you want to hear me make fun of other people who sound really stupid on the internet, then maybe you should consider subscribing over on my channel. If you're watching over on Twitch, then head over to youtube.com/SurisSkeptic and subscribe to me over there. Also, please check out my streams. I'm live right now, but obviously if you're watching this over on YouTube, then this may not be exactly true by the time that you do. Also, please consider supporting me by picking up the channel playmat, and I also have a Patreon where you can support me as well. Also, on top of all of that, if you have not already, please consider checking out my Magic the Gathering channel, which is youtube.com/SurisMTG, and I also have a Blue Sky, which you can follow me at as well, because I've basically moved off the other platform. That all said, thank you for watching, and hopefully you had fun making fun of these motherfuckers with me. Insert end video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Briskreek, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.